For millions of Americans, quarantine now feels annoyingly normal. But just a few months ago, it seemed unbelievable. When Jared Evans returned to the US from Wuhan, China in January, he became one of the first Americans the federal government had quarantined in more than 50 years.
So walk me through this when you land. Where did you land?
We landed in Alaska first because we was getting our temperature checks. I mean, everyone's taking major precautions. But then we got back on a plane and came to California. We landed at a military base. I think it was like 2 days later, like the government's going to give us a federal quarantine. So we just said, okay, all right.
In California, could you have walked off the base and said, I'm a free person, I can do what I want?
No, sir. You're on federal quarantine. You know, you either be that or I guess in jail.
The feds actually have the power to keep you forcibly quarantined if you have one of these diseases. COVID-19 was just added to the list. Even though the CDC has the power to isolate and detain someone, the authority to keep them on lockdown usually falls on the states. In 2014, Ebola was spreading through West Africa. In the US, at least 18 states issued quarantine guidelines due to the epidemic.
Thank you guys. I have to go speak with the health department now.
An American nurse named Casey Hickox went to Sierra Leone to work with Doctors Without Borders. After returning to the US, the state of New Jersey quarantined her in a tent after she showed no symptoms. She later sued Governor Chris Christie. Her settlement created a sort of quarantine Bill of Rights. Professor Carl Tobias teaches constitutional law at the University of Richmond. He isn't sure if it's the states or the feds who decides who gets quarantined and who doesn't.
It leaves a lot of discretion in public officials that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, I would think. And so the stakes are huge. I'm thinking about the clash between what Trump is saying about the economy and trying to salvage that at the same time as, the notion that people should go back to work could make the epidemic or pandemic worse. Those are going to be difficult to sort out, and I suppose they're going to end up in court. There's a pretty broad sort of police power to protect public health, safety, and welfare. The national government, the state governments, the local government can protect their citizens from dangers of all sorts, and especially one like the present one.
With the death toll rising in the United States, more Americans seem open to the idea. 74% of Americans would support a federal quarantine. But President Trump isn't considering it now.
A group came to me and they wanted to do the quarantine, and I said, let's think about it, and we did, and we studied it, and by the time the evening came, it just was something that was very unwieldy, very tough to enforce, and something we didn't want to do.
For now, while the White House has issued guidelines and best practices, enforcing these measures falls on local and state officials. And everything else is on us.